All I had to do was sit in this hotel room with this girl, right? And we were waiting for a bad guy to show up to drop off some money. That was it. But they needed two agents in a room, and she was sitting there in this bed, and she had two pillows in front of her, and she was sitting there like a statue. My job was to welcome the guy in the room, receive the bag of money, and let the guy go. And they needed a Latin guy to do it. And obviously, I fit the role. What's funny is when she lifts up the pillow, she had a shotgun. And everybody said she knew how to use it, and I believed it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Game of Crimes with Murph in the Morning. Thank you so much for coming back every week. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you haven't checked us out on YouTube yet, go over there, go to the search bar, type in Game of Crimes Podcast, hit the like button, the subscribe button, listen to some episodes, and send me your comments. But I truly do appreciate you coming back every week. And just like every week, I've got another stud on here with us today, a really close personal friend of mine that I've known forever. He's not as old as I am, but we've known each other a long time. Got a 38-year career in law enforcement. His last 24 years with DEA, and he's actually continuing on into a law enforcement career in retirement, but not where he's out making cases anymore. He's actually leading an organization. We're going to get into all that today. But ladies and gentlemen, please join me and welcome AJ Collazo. AJ, brother, welcome to Game of Crimes.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invitation. I tell you what, having time to sit down with a legend such as yourself to talk about the cop shop is always a yes for me. So thank you for having me on board.
And our listeners probably thinking, do I pay people to say nice things about me? Yes, I do. No, I don't really, but I appreciate that, brother. You know, coming from somebody that has your background, that's a real compliment.
Oh, thank you. Well, likewise.
And we'll get through this bromance in just a minute, everybody. We'll move on. But AJ was a deputy sheriff with the Seminole County, Florida Sheriff's Office for 14 and a half years before he went over to DEA for 24 years. So, almost 39 years in law enforcement. But just like I always do, I didn't tell AJ anything about our small town police blotter until last night. Kind of sprang in on them, and just like everybody else, he's like, man, bring it on. So, AJ, we have a little disclaimer I'll read. This is a show about crime. We talk about bad people. We talk about bad people doing bad things to good people. Now, we're going to take the show very seriously, but we never want to miss the opportunity to have a laugh at some of these knuckleheads that are out there, because there's a lot of these people should have chosen a different career.
You wouldn't believe what we see sometimes, right?
That's absolute truth. So AJ's here in Florida where I am. Of course, we got two Florida stories for you today. And, we have no shortage of stupid criminals here in Florida. So, brother, take it away.
Thank you. Well, according to the blotter report, it says a Florida man takes drunk driving to the next level on a Segway. You've seen those machines, right? The two-wheelers. And you drive around on an angle with he made quite the scene when the police spotted him swerving onto oncoming traffic directly outside the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Now, I know what this is. Actually, been there many times. It's a big 4-lane highway with the median, and during rush hour, it is crazy busy. Cars flying up and down, right, even outside the sheriff's office. But it's a busy intersection, very dangerous for what he was doing. But it says here that he has heavy smell of wine on his breath, and after a minute of drinking nearly 2 bottles, he was reportedly 3 times over the legal limits. Can't write that. And decides to go outside of Grady Judd's house to decide to drive drunk on a Segway to get attention.
Oh, my goodness.
Isn't that amazing? Officers had to redirect cars to avoid colliding with the rogue Segway, while the Florida man, struggling through sobriety tests, explained that he gets tired fast due to his pacemaker. Again, that's one of those crazy things. He's drinking, he's on a pacemaker, he's outside the police shop, and decides to do something silly. Anyway, while Segways seem harmless, Florida law treats them as motor vehicles, so DUI charges apply no matter how fancy your ride is. So after a quick detour to the sheriff's office, he got booked. He posted a $1,000 bond, and leaving both his Segway and dignity behind at the stations. Even two wheels in Florida gets you a DUI, but there are people that do crazy things, and this is one of those things that you see in Florida. And when you're in police work, you see a lot of things.
I had no idea the Segway was considered a motor vehicle. That was new to me.
I didn't either. That was kind of funny because I wouldn't have thought of it. But I mean, he's out there in the middle of the road, and again, a busy highway, a place that I know pretty well. And thank God he didn't get run over. He could have gotten tattooed real quick by a car.
Well, you know, in Polk County, they'll put your butt in jail.
Oh no, Sheriff Grady, no, he does not play.
Yep.
And that guy's a remarkable guy, and he's well loved by his citizens in that county. He'll be there as long as he wants to be there, and he's doing a phenomenal job. We work with his folks all the time. They're great agents, great narcotics unit there, and they do other things very well as well. So great department. He's done a really marvelous job with those folks.
I may have to get you to introduce me to Sheriff Judd because I'd love to have him on the show.
Oh, maybe we can try to do that.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, brother. Thanks for reading that. I got one here from Florida also, and this is about a burglary victim. The burglary victim reported that someone had broken into his home, and then he provided a home security video for the man's description. The suspect was found not too far away, and he admitted to breaking into the house because he could hear barking dogs inside. That's why, you hear a dog barking inside their house, so you break in there and make sure everything's okay. Like that's okay.
Yes, that's what you do.
Well, then the suspect, he turned his bad day into a legendary day when he complained to deputies about his bad meth. And he said, could you guys test this for me? Because, quality control, that really matters. Idiot. The deputies kindly obliged, confirming his meth was indeed real and rewarded him with an extra possession charge to go with his burglary arrest. Turns out that some things are better left untested.
And unsaid.
Yep. And here on Game of Crimes, what's our one rule, everybody? Don't do meth because it makes you do stupid things like this. But, oh, man, just, sometimes I keep thinking I'm going to run out of, especially when I'm interviewing people that are in Florida, you got to come up with 2 Florida stories. I do a section on the I've got a Patreon channel. It's patreon.com/Game of Crimes, everybody, if you want to come over and join us. But I've got a monthly section. You can't make this crap up. It's an hour's worth of stupid criminals from around the world every month. And invariably it takes about 14 or 15 pages of stories to get an hour's worth. And out of those stories, probably 20% come from Florida.
Wow.
Woohoo! You can be a leader. You can be a follower. We're going to be a leader of the stupid criminals here in Florida.
I thank those dumb ones because those are easier to catch.
Oh, yeah. We go for the low-hanging fruit when we can, right? All right.
Proud.
AJ, thanks for playing along with that, man. I know it's kind of silly, but it kind of gets things off on the right foot here because we want to have some fun.
Don't mind at all. Don't mind at all. It's a great story, the one at Polk County.
It is. It is. So the way AJ and I know each other, I get introduced to a lot of people that I would like to have on the show or that would like to be on the show. But AJ and I have been friends from our special operations days. I know I was there from 2001 to 2006. What year did you get there, AJ?
From 2002 through 8.
So, and he came in as an agent, right? Still making cases. Yes. And we're going to get into his career here in a minute, but you've heard us interview folks here before about the 959 groups or the 960 group, the bilateral investigation groups. And that's what AJ did. And then he ended up leading the group, and then his career just blossomed from there. But we'll save that for here just in a few minutes. AJ, if you would, let's talk about where you grew up, what your family dynamics were, brothers and sisters. What did mom and dad do? Did you play sports in school? Did you go to college? All that kind of stuff.
Well, fine. We'll start. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. My parents they moved over from Puerto Rico. They were born and raised there, and they moved to Philadelphia, as did most of their family. Both sides of my parents' family were very big. Dad had 11 brothers and sisters, and my mom had 9.
Wow.
And all of them had migrated at one point or another to the Northeast. And most people from Puerto Rico went to New York. A lot of them came to Philadelphia. My parents did that, and we were the only ones that lived from the family that actually lived inside the city. Some of them did initially, but they all moved out to the burbs. Some of them even to the outer edges where they were able to buy land and be near agricultural areas. But that's where I grew up. But we were city dwellers. We grew up in an area called North. I was born in South Philly, but they moved and got a house in North Philadelphia, just a couple blocks from the Kensington area. And I know you know that area pretty well. And it's probably one of the most notorious open air drug markets in the country today.
Wow.
But I'm the guy that can tell you I remember when, because it wasn't that way always. When I was a kid, I mean, a very nice area. That Kensington area, as you left our area, our area got to be increasingly more tough and became one of those neighborhoods that you didn't want to be in. And I remember when I was back in the task force at DEA, we helped some Philly PD guys pick up a fugitive. And I talked to them, told them, every time I talk to someone in Philadelphia, we talk about where we lived. And, of course, we all agonize over our Phillies and our Eagles and things like that. But I told them these guys where I lived at, they looked at me like I had a third eye. He said, "You lived in the Badlands." I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Well, that's what we called it at the PD." I said, "Well, the cops never told us what they called it. We just grew up there."
Yeah.
So that's where I went. My parents were good enough. My sister is a year older than me. She had a lot of medical issues, eyesight, hearing, and things like that while we were growing up. But they were good enough to send us to Catholic school. We were in the Catholic Church, and all 12 years I went to Catholic school. And in my 7th grade year, my dad wanted me to go to this one high school, Cardinal Doherty, which is in the northeast section of the city, Alney section. And at the time, it was the largest Catholic school in this hemisphere.
Wow.
Philadelphia back then was the 4th largest city, behind Chicago, New York, and LA, and pretty active place. So my dad, he wanted to make sure that I went there. It kind of ticked me off when I was a young guy, because all my friends were graduating going to North Catholic, which was closer. But that was the thing about that was a boys' high school. Cardinal Doherty was before, but then they had girls when I was there, so that kind of evened everything out. But it was a long bus ride. It was about an hour ride up, an hour ride back.
Oh my goodness!
You had to take 2, make a connection, things like that. And so I went to Cardinal Doherty for high school. And I'm glad he made that decision, because it was a great experience, met a lot of people, learned a lot of things. And, the further north and away from the inner city you went, the greener the grass got. You just got to see more of it, less concrete. And that was another thing that I liked a lot. And one of our things that as a family we would do, we'd go out and visit the relatives. They all lived out in the country and nicer places than we did, but we were in the city. So I really enjoyed that part of school. After that, I went to Temple University and started there anyway. I later on finished it years later down when I moved to Florida at St. Leo College, which is now St. Leo University. But I studied criminal justice at Temple, changed my major to criminology at the end at St. Leo. And but at a young age, I knew I wanted to get into police work. That was my thing. That was my goal.
What did Mom and Dad do for a living?
Well, Mom was more of a homemaker. We had a couple of small businesses, the family did as well. Dad had what they call we had a bodega. You know what those are? They're little mom and pop stop and shops in the neighborhood. In the
Stop and Robs.
Stop and Robs, exactly. I'll tell you another funny story about that in a second here. But we had the bodega, and Dad was a teacher by trade. He went to college, first one in his family to go to college in Puerto Rico, UPR, and he wanted to be a teacher, couldn't land it, and then he started figuring out how unions were taking over things. And I remember he told me one time, he says, "Yeah, I make a salary, but a good chunk of my salary goes to the union guys. It doesn't come to me. I don't know what that does for me. It doesn't help me at all." So he wasn't all about that. So he went to work for a couple of jobs. He ended up landing a job at the Department of Labor, and he worked on and off with them. He worked long enough to get a pension at the very end, small pension.
Nice.
But because he had worked there for many years, stopped, and we opened that grocery store, that bodega, and after that, went back to us so he can get his pension and was able to close it out.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you, and so you're in this Kensington area, and was it drug ridden when you lived there, or that came afterwards?
That part came afterwards. And I'll tell you, our area was more drug ridden than that. I mean, I lived at 5th Street at Lehigh Avenue. You drive 5 blocks, you're at Kensington, you have the the train station. I don't know if you remember the Rocky movies where that gym he used to fight at was underneath the train. It was right at Kensington. Actually, They painted it all to South Philly, but they shot some scenes up outside of our neighborhood. But Kensington wasn't so bad. It was a little worse on our side. But that eventually started degrading, and people started moving. As more people started moving into the neighborhood, you got to get to see more of those things. But drugs were a big problem. I remember we would walk to school 4 or 5 blocks, and I'd walk with my sister. She would go, and I'd take shortcuts through alleyways. My mom would be ticked at me, and so would my dad, because you'd have junkies sometimes sitting there on the nod. You'd have needles spread out in the alleyways. They want you falling, getting jabbed and things like that. So those things that you had to look out for.
Wow. So what do you credit? How did you stay out of the drug scene there going on? I mean, there had to be somewhat of an influence there, right?
If you met my dad, you'd know the influence.
That answers it all right there.
Yeah. He was very, and they kept us close to the church. Dad was one of those guys, one of those pillars of the Latin community. My dad was a part of the Masonic Lodge. He ran the lodge that he was in for a little while. He was also part of the Lions Club. He was at the end. He was part of the Knights of Columbus as well. Things like that, and he was a big influence on that. But yeah, you didn't want to cross that guy especially when we were younger, and I had good uncles. I had one uncle who was a cop, and he was pretty much the guy that reached out, gave me a hand up to get into the career eventually. But he was a cop up there, and he moved to Florida well ahead of me. And of those people that my dad was friends with, a lot of people in the Masonic Lodge, at the Lions Club in Lions Columbus too. They were all Philly PD guys.
Very
good. They'd come visit all the time. They were good people. I mean, they'd sit there and I'd sit around. They'd tell war stories kind of like you and I would, and I got to listen to a lot of them. There was a small time there when Dad, he got a private investigator's license, and he opened a security firm with my uncle. And my dad ran it with another partnership group, and they had a little security team, probably 30, 35 people. And they provided uniform security to different shopping centers and things like that. And their uniforms looked like the Philly PD. They were blue. As a matter of fact, a lot of those guys were off-duty cops moonlighting to, make an extra buck. So I got to know a lot of them. I still remember the one night my mom went to visit her mom in Puerto Rico, took my sister, and so I stayed at home with Dad. And it was like 11 o'clock at night. One of his officers or his guards, security guards, got beat up by a bunch of thugs in one of the shopping centers, and the PD actually called him to come out. I'm 10 years old. He couldn't leave me. He wasn't going to leave me there, so I rode with him, and he called out his cavalry, and it was one of those things where they were sweeping the neighborhoods with the PD looking for the thugs that they hurt this guy pretty badly, ended up in the hospital. So my dad's dealing with the cops, and he had me sit with a couple of his officers in a car. And, I'm a young kid in the back watching all this. It was like it was watching a movie, and I was there in person watching it live. And you see the camaraderie and the way that everybody was busting each other's stones and laughing. But they were taking care of business. And I got to see a lot of that. It's kind of like taking a peek behind the curtain and how this profession was. And I kind of fell in love with it.
I know it's exciting, man. It's everybody downs cops, but it's an honorable profession, and it is cool when you get to see that and you get that bug. And once you got that bug, man, it's the only one thing to do. Let's go get a job.
You're right. You can't do this job and say, okay, I'll do it. Some people, if it's not for you, yeah, please leave. You should.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not like a job where you can go, okay, I'm going to work for an accounting firm for 2-3 years while I get a resume to go do something else. Or I'm going to work at the hospital, helping, do maintenance or something. And well, yeah, you'd want to leave that to go move on to something better. It's not a job that you leave. You do for a couple of years.
Right.
It takes so long to get vetted to go through that, as you know. And, a guy like me coming from where I came from, luckily I had good family and good upbringing and a strong-fisted father that took care to make sure that I didn't get into trouble, or too much trouble. We all do, but I had that upbringing, and I had uncles and these other faux uncles, if you will. And but you come from my part of the world, you see a lot of things, and a lot of kids that I knew aren't with us today.
Yeah,
and that early on in life, and a lot of them turned and made a wrong turn, went somewhere else. So if you didn't do what I did, or you didn't go into service, you had to have luck in college, get a good degree, and find a job somewhere. I always wanted to leave the city anyway, because I wanted to be out in the country and things like that, and go see the world. So.
You mentioned that you're a Phillies fan, and I just got to give a shout out to a couple guys. This past weekend, family was down. We're recording this, everybody, on the week after Thanksgiving, and the grandkids and daughters, they wanted to go to a movie, so we went over to Disney Springs so they could see that movie Zootopia. And of course, my son-in-law and I were like, yeah, no thanks. So we go over to one of the bars there because Georgia was playing Georgia Tech college football. But at the same time, Philly was playing in Chicago.
Oh, no.
And I'm not going to say the score, but I don't think your team won.
They did not.
But we're sitting there at the bar and I don't drink, but having a Diet Coke. My son-in-law's having a beer. And these two guys next to us, they were wanting this big screen TV switched over to the Chicago game because it was farther down the bar, And I leaned over and said, not as long as Georgia's on. Or, we're going to watch Georgia. That's what we've been sitting here all afternoon waiting on. And right. So anyway, I get up and go to the restroom. I come back, and they leaned over my son-in-law, and they said, are you Steve Murphy? And I'm like, how in the world could you have known who I am? Turns out,
you're a legend.
Well, no, turns out they listen to Game of Crimes, and they're Narcos fans. So to Mark and Omar from Chicago, hey, your team hung in there. It was great meeting you guys. Thank you for making my day. My son-in-law, he couldn't believe it either. But I thought you guys were going to buy him a beer, but you didn't, so I had to. But no, great to meet you guys, and truly, I just appreciate the respect that you showed. So told him I'd give him a shout out on the show. So got to live up to what you say.
Yeah, that's right. Well, their team's number one in the standings now. LA lost yesterday, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Listen, Matt Stafford's out at LA, right?
Yes, sir.
And let's see, where did he play college ball? Georgia.
That's right. That's right.
Go Dogs.
Yeah, hell. But I tell you, in Philadelphia, the Eagles, they have like 9 Bulldogs.
Yeah.
And like about 7 guys from Alabama. It's an SEC team, even though it's up north.
Yep. Gotta love it, man. Gotta love it. Yeah. All right. So now you come out. You were telling me originally you wanted to apply to Philly PD, but you really wanted to be with the Pennsylvania State Police. How did that fall in, and what happened with those?
Well, I was going through the process and going to college. And that's one of those things where Dad says, you're going to college or you're going to service, but you're not staying here if you don't do either. So
good man.
College. I was that close to going into service, but I knew what I wanted to do. I had a plan. And so I was applying through the Philly PD. In Pennsylvania, to be a trooper, you had to be at least 21 to apply. And so I was a 19-year-old, the audacity of a 19-year-old kid wanted to do police work. That wasn't a thing for them. So I was going through the process, and I mentioned my uncle. He was a cop down here in Florida. He worked at the police department in the city of Sanford, just north of Orlando. And he invited me. He said, why don't you come down and apply down here? We'll see what happens. I mean, you don't know. It may take you a while to get hired by the police department in Philadelphia. And so I think I surprised him. I took him up on the offer, came down here, and he was living in an apartment. He got me to meet the sheriff, and I applied at his city PD. I applied at the sheriff's office, looked around at other places, and it was during Christmas of 81, actually, 1981. That's how far back it was. And actually, I spent Christmas down there with him and his family, and I was getting ready to pack up because I had a spring semester to go back to. I was a junior in college at the time, and he says, "Once you stay down here a little bit, something might happen." Sure enough, at the end of February, I get the call. The sheriff's office picked me up, and it was off to the races.
Nice.
Then went back. Kind of funny because the PD sent a certified letter to the house after I was on at the sheriff's office for a little while. And there was a conditional job offer. They wanted me to give me a job up there. Back then, I would have started at just under $30,000 a year. In Florida, at the sheriff's office, I started at $13,900. That was just sad.
Oh, well, you were talking about being a cop at 19. I was 19 by 1 month when I got hired in West Virginia.
There you go.
Started out at $9,400 a year.
Oh my God!
You had to work every off job, every overtime, anything you could get, man. You had to do it.
Did that. But I sat there after went through all the trouble, got the job at the sheriff's office, and my uncle helped me out a lot. And actually, he was a guiding force into what to do or not to do or not to say. And sometimes I listened to it, sometimes I didn't. But like he said, you got sun, sand, and bikinis down here. You go back up to the cold, the snow, the miserable traffic. It's a lot more dangerous up there. Although I don't know, it doesn't matter where you're at. Something can always happen. But
that's right.
Harder way of life. So, and hats off to Philly PD. I understand they're going through a lot of changes, but I'm glad that I got to stay. It worked out really well.
And you worked with Seminole County, right?
Yes, sir. Right outside of Orlando.
Yeah, is that north of Orlando, right?
North, just north of Orlando. Our county is right. Orlando's in Orange County, and there's maybe a mile or two that's county before you get into Seminole, outside of Orlando. As a matter of fact, some of Orlando mailing is in the southern part of Seminole County. Okay. That's how close it is. And back then, the population was about 1/4 mil. They're right at 1/2 mil today, and growing. They were one of the fastest growing counties here for a while.
Yeah, this whole metro Orlando area seems to be growing like crazy.
Reminds me of Los Angeles.
Oh yeah.
Yes, the way it sprawls and it spreads out east, west, even north. You have Disney and everything else, and the attractions and the school. UCF, they're second largest in the country, right?
Yeah.
And a lot more growth, and every shop and outlet you'd ever can imagine. So there's something for everybody, and it's grown a lot.
Maybe it's because of us old people that moved down here, but the medical care here is fantastic. Oh,
it has to be, right?
Yeah.
It has to be. Take care of everybody. And it is. They got great hospitals and they're growing. They have the one that's, Arnold Palmer for kids.
Right.
And it's a metropolis, and it's still considered a small city. I want to say the metro area, including the 3 counties, is about 2 mil, I would say, somewhere around that. I know the I-4 corridor, the area that through my current assigned business is 8 and change.
Wow. It's I was telling you earlier this morning before we started recording that AJ texted me, and I was just getting back from physical therapy for my hip, and just found out Friday that I've got a torn rotator cuff and a torn bicep here on the right side. So we're just going to be wearing a sling here soon. But it's just part of it, man. It beats the alternative, right?
You can't throw sliders and fastballs anymore.
I could do good to raise my arm.
Yeah, I had that one done. Then my left is next, so I feel your pain, literally.
When you were at the SO, now, did you work patrol the whole time? Because you were there for 14 and a half years, I think we said. 14
years, and actually, that was going to be home for me. That was going to be. I didn't think about moving on to anything else. It was just a lot of these things happen by happenstance, I guess. I worked at the jail. I worked at patrol a long time. I worked local narcotics for a little while. I was a detective for a little while after that, and I was in detective. The criminal investigations division at the time was divided into property crimes and persons crimes, and you had to go into property crimes first to prove your worth, I guess. And if you were good enough, you were, or if you wanted to, some people didn't want to, you'd go into persons crimes, which is your robberies, your homicides, your assaults and things like that. And you learned a lot in the property section because those are the real whodunits. Somebody broke into my house. Who did it? Yeah, you'll find out. Okay, so what did they steal? They steal your TV. Let me go check the pawn shops or the readouts from there. Oh, we've had several other burglaries here. Okay, let's find out who got field contacted by a deputy in the middle of the night near the neighborhood or somewhere else and get those names together. Go interview people. You can develop sources. I mean, if you can solve a burglary, you can solve almost anything is what I used to say. And but on the other hand, and if you solve one today, you don't get much time to celebrate. It's like winning a football game because you got to plan for next week. The very next morning, you have 8 more on your desk in your particular area. But yeah, I got a lot of experience doing that. I got to run around, move around, and my goal at the time was to promote and stay here. And I was, by happenstance, they needed some, back then, I think, there were only 2 of us in the department at the time, and it's not a problem today, or not that it was then. I don't spoke Spanish, and so...
Really?
Yeah. Back then.
Wow.
In the early 80s? Yes, sir.
Holy cow, I wouldn't expect that here in Central Florida.
But you are now. Today, it's a total growth. I mean, it's very... I think especially the people from the Puerto Ricans, I mean, people moved down from New York and Puerto Rico, especially after the storms, but from New York, and I think there are more Puerto Ricans. I kid around, there are more Puerto Ricans in Orlando than there are in the Bronx, and certainly more than Puerto Rico almost. But
I think you're right. I've heard years ago when I was on the job that Orlando had the largest Puerto Rican population outside of Puerto Rico.
Yeah. I believe it. And then it grows into the county, goes up into Seminole County and Osceola County to the south. And there's a lot of us in police work, a ton of us now in police work, and a lot of them holding higher positions within these agencies and everything else. We also have a large Cuban community, obviously. We have a Colombian community, a Dominican community, and they're all, everybody, the language and the customs dating back to Spain still stay with you, depending on whatever country your family's from.
Our neighborhood, we're definitely the minorities in our neighborhood, which is fine. I mean, I like it. But the funny thing is, especially when workers come over, like recently we had new flooring put in and we had to replace our air conditioning system. We went 3 days without AC right before Thanksgiving. And they all come in. Some of them can't even, some of these workers can't even speak English, and it's very broken English. And when I switch over to Spanish, it shocks the heck out of them.
Oh, I'm sure.
Español? It's like gringos can't speak Spanish. And mine's not good. It's, I'll never be fluent, but yeah, it always shocks them.
But you were good enough to work, to do what you needed to do to get along and make things happen. And a lot of people would think, especially when we were at DEA, that people would get jobs in the foreign arena, especially most of our offices in Central and South America. And it's not necessary that you speak the language. You better be a good agent, because I'll take the guy and I've taken the guy that doesn't speak a lick of Spanish if they have the determination, they have a track record of working good cases, knowing how to get along with other agencies. And you can take some language school and get them on the ground running. When I was the SEC in Puerto Rico, they treated Puerto Rico with a lot of the foreign benefits. Language school was one of them. And what happens is, you go to language school here at home, or maybe sometimes they sent you to DC or someplace in California. Then you come back and wait for funding for that. And what we did was we started bringing, okay, you're coming, you get the assignment in San Juan or Ponce or the VI. You're coming, you're reporting to the office down here at the division. You go to because language school is all done like we're doing it today. It's on Zoom. You come down here, you do your language school here. In the meantime, get your kids into school, get your living situation taken care of. And not for nothing, once you turn off the computer, you walk out into the AOR and you're using it. You're going to the grocery store. You're going to the mall. You're getting your car fixed. You're getting gas. And you're using the language.
That makes so much sense. I'm sorry. That makes so much sense, because, when I went to language school in DC, they taught me how to speak proper Spanish. Okay. So I go to Colombia. I speak to everybody in Colombia. They understood every word I said. And then they talk to me in Colombian Spanish, which I'm thinking, I never learned that in school. I have no clue what you just said. And so that makes perfect sense, because now even though it's all Spanish, there's Cuban Spanish, Colombian Spanish, Puerto Rican Spanish, all the different Spain Spanish, you know.
You got West Virginia English.
There you go.
You got West Virginia English, and I'm from Philadelphia.
Yep, I speak redneck and hillbilly.
That's it. Well, you know, the Brits that used to work with us, remember when we were at SOD? They tell us all the time, you don't speak English. Sometimes they can't understand us. So.
Oh, that was funny, though. Thank goodness those guys had a good sense of humor.
Oh, yeah, they were great.
They were. So now, as you're in the sheriff's office, how did you get attracted to DEA? Where did that desire come from?
Well, yeah, I had worked narco for a bit, and then I didn't like it. The dynamic didn't work. I left and went back got out of the narcotics unit. But one of the things that I did do, and this will ring for you. Brand new narc. They gave me this '70s minivan, not a minivan, but a van to drive. One of those with the window on the top and the back, with Kansas plates. And I'm living by myself, and we had pagers. Not beepers, pagers.
Yeah.
It says you get like what the doctors have. You get a beep, beep, beep. Call your office. I called basically you called dispatch, and he said, "Be at DEA tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock and meet the squad there." I didn't know. Okay, and I was a new guy in the narc unit. I went out and I showed up at the DEA office with all the rest of the guys in our narc unit, which was back then was only about 8 or 9. Back then, was a small team. And I got to know some of those guys there, and it was right when the camaraderie thing was going on. They were talking to us about it. He still hadn't been found.
Oh.
It was right in the middle of that, and they explained that to us, and they were frantically looking for this guy. And we all know how it ended.
Right.
And I got to meet some of them, and you know, like some of them, and actually later on they would call and ask for me to help them do some undercover work. And that kind of on the job training. I never knew. We went and did a deal with them. One time they took this one particular deal. It was pretty cool. There was all I had to do was sit in this hotel room with this girl, right? And we were waiting for a bad guy to show up to drop off some money. That was it. But they needed two agents in a room. So, and she was sitting there in this bed. And she had 2 pillows in front of her, and she was sitting there like a statue. My job was to welcome the guy in the room, see the bag, receive the bag of money, and let the guy go. And they needed a Latin guy to do it. And obviously, I fit the role. What's funny is when she lifts up the pillow, she had a shotgun. And everybody said she knew how to use it, and I believed it. So she was there for security more than anything else. But I got to do some undercover work, got to learn. I got to liking the job.
Yeah.
And then they had back in those days, they had those things called wiretaps, and they were all in Spanish. So I was always, "Hey, AJ, go TDY over to DEA and help them out with the case." We had some guys assigned to the task force there. Got to know them, got to be good friends with them, still good friends with them today. One of them I work with now. And when he left the task force, I had just gotten to the violent crime, the crimes against persons unit. We work in homicides and things like that, home invasions. And I was really liking it there. And then this opportunity pops up. There's an opening over at DEA. Do you want it? Because a lot of people are going to jump on it. And luckily, with his help, the incoming sheriff support and the current sheriff, they sent me over to DEA to be a task force agent. And I never went back.
Was that in the mid-90s?
That was 90.
Okay.
90.
Who was your buddy? Was that Chris? The guy
my buddy at the sheriff's department?
That you said at DEA. You had a buddy there.
Oh, I made friends with Steve Collins is who I made friends with.
Oh, yeah.
You remember him. Yeah, he was at SOD with us. Actually, he became a mentor and a rabbi, so to speak, for me.
Yeah.
Helped me out a lot. And now Chris worked with me here, and he's worked with me in Tampa and in Puerto Rico, another great agent. And
yeah. One of these days, I'm going to talk him into coming on the show. He was a little bashful about it, so I keep working on him.
Yeah, pretty humble guy. Very, very accomplished, though.
He is. And Steve Collins he's another legend within DEA. When he was at SOD, that was a guy that you could go to for advice, and you knew you were always going to get good he had great reasoning. He had the experience and the expertise. So just a legendary guy.
Yeah, when I got to DEA, I'd watch. That's the guy who was making all the cases, but he's the one that would call me to help him do the undercover aspect of some of those cases, and always had good advice. And we got to be partners for a while there too. We ran a little team of our own, and eventually Haida was born, and it came to Orlando, and I got to be on the squad. He was the supervisor, and they were creating 2 new groups into the structure that was already there in Orlando. It grew the office by another quarter of the people that were there.
Wow. Yeah, I tried to get in Orlando. Gosh, I don't even remember where I was back then. And I think Mike McMahon was the resident agent charge at the time. Yeah, but things just didn't work out. But things do work out. Things happen for a reason. So no problems there. So now you come on to DEA. Obviously, you hire on through the Orlando office, right?
Yes, sir.
And you go, and this is 1996. You go to the academy. When you went through the academy, did you ever have to write any memos for things that you did that, might be a little funny or questionable?
No, who, me? No.
Brother, I did.
No, my God. I mean, I tell you what, if you were, I learned, God, what? So, not making the run, going late to class. You had to write memos to go out if you wanted to go see a movie and come back at night. You had to write a memo if you were too loud in the boardroom. If you know what the boardroom is at the FBI academy.
Yeah.
I was at the old academy.
That's the bar.
That's the bar. That's right. And we met a lot of FBI people that were going through at the same time that we did. You see them out in the field, and you got to meet all the people at the National Academy, and that's good. So if you knew you were going to Boston, and there's some officers from the National Academy from the Boston PD or Mass State Police, you got to meet them there before you went out to the field.
Oh yeah,
it's a great concept.
And finally, just a few months ago, the FBI started bringing Javier and I in to talk about the Escobar case to the National Academy itself. So they have 4 classes a year. I'm flying up to DC tomorrow. We speak Wednesday morning this week.
Oh, good.
It's a blast. It's a blast. And now, I don't know if you know, but they actually allow at least one DEA agent to attend every National Academy class.
I heard that if they wanted to. Yeah, I've heard that. I heard they sent one of the ASECs from here out in the field up there.
Nice. And then they DEA training actually assigned an agent to the National Academy also. So that's kind of how we did.
Okay, so they can do that's fine. Oh, I'm doing my part. My wife, it's full disclosure, my wife's just retired as an FBI agent. She did 22 years.
Wow.
And thank God, and she kept me out of trouble all those years. And great agent in her own right. And she understood understood what I was doing. So, and the FBI, they were very good about every time I got moved. I was on longer, obviously. And as I started promoting up, they were really good about placing her, which I always said I was grateful for. Excellent.
So tell us about your wish list. Where is it you wanted to go when you came out of the academy?
Oh, right where I ended up in Orlando. I got there. Luckily, things worked out for me. Couple of chess pieces had to get moved, but luckily what happened was in the late 90s there, mid to late 90s, the heroin epidemic started to rise in Orlando. And for source mortality rates, the city of Orlando, which was still not as big as it is today, but it started growing. But you had people dying from heroin use. Back in the days, in the early days, in the mid 80s, if we bought heroin and you tested it, the purity levels were like in less than the 10s, right? 15 maybe, something like that. If you bought heroin and the purity was in the 20s, you were buying something that was substantial.
Right.
You didn't see that on the street. Well, fast forward to the mid-90s, the Colombians were flooding the market using their cocaine transportation routes to bring heroin into the United States. They started mass producing heroin, and they were competing with the Chinese in the Northeast and boxed a lot of them out, as you remember, right? And so,
oh, yeah.
In certain situations. But they were putting heroin on the street. There was the purity levels in the high 80s, low 90s. So then you have, unfortunately, it was really bad. It wasn't, I mean, it's a lot worse today with the fentanyl issue that we're dealing with today. But back then, kids, oh, I want to try, I'll try it. You know, trying a little bit of heroin that's at 90% pure, they're dying.
Yeah.
We had an epidemic here. I mean, Orlando in the top 5 for a good 5-year period. So proposal was made to ONDCP, and the Hyder was birthed in Orlando in late 1998. And 2 heroin squads were opened at DEA. Other law enforcement initiatives were formed with that birth of that Hyder, the CCIB, MBI, 2 big major task forces in this area. There were Hyder initiatives over on the West Coast. You had a meth problem as well, and they were part of the Hyder as well. You know, the Polk County Sheriff's Office was part of it. Hillsborough, Tampa PD, DEA Tampa over there. And so we had a big problem in Orlando. Then they were looking at filling those slots. I was at Johnny on the spot. I wanted to stay. I was looking for reasons to stay. I had something that I was working on to try to stay, and this ended up working. We had again the SAC at the time ended up being chief of ops was Mr. Milford. He was supportive of that. Billy Mitchell became the SAC after that, very supportive of that. Bob Michelotti was the ASAC over in Tampa, supportive of it as well, especially with the growth of this office here. Orlando, when I started there, the task force in 90 was maybe 19 people, which was the task force, and maybe 5 DEA agents, and that's support people as well. Now they're over 100 in a place that, because it's grown so much. And at the time that there was a big growth, 2 large enforcement groups, and we were knocking down heroin dealers left and right because it was very rampant here at the time.
Did you work with an Orlando police officer named Matt Barden?
Oh, yes, I did.
I love it. Matt's an old friend.
Jethro, yes.
Yeah. So when I came back from Colombia, I got stationed in Greensboro, North Carolina, and started working on an OCDF case there on some cocaine and crack dealers, a Haitian group out of Orlando, believe it or not. And there were some people in lockup here and federal lockup here in Central Florida. So, you know, we needed somebody. I think that's when McManaman was the rack. And so we called down. He's like, yeah, I got a TFO I'll hook you up with. You know, he's got the contacts. And it was Matt. And he's been a guest here on the show. Gosh, a couple of years ago. And he's hilarious. He still calls every once in a while. When he comes down to visit his mom, he'll give me a call. And if I'm in town, we'll get together. But the guy was, and I got to tell this one story because it's just legendary. So I've got a North Carolina State Bureau agent with me, and I've got a Salisbury, North Carolina police detective with me. And these 2 guys were, especially the Salisbury guy, he was country as they come, but he's one of the best investigators I ever met. And so we come down, and his name was JD, and the other guy was Wayne. And so Matt says, we finished working one day, and he says, well, you know, let's go down to Hooters here at Church Street Station in downtown Orlando and have dinner and a couple drinks. So we go down there. And of course, the more we drink, the wilder it gets. And JD was single, and he was a good-looking guy. And one of the waitresses, they all kept coming up and talking to him. And one of them accidentally spills sauce, you know, barbecue sauce on JD's lap in a strategic location, and then proceeds to help him clean up. You know, it just got wilder from there. And it wasn't much long after that, the manager comes over and he says, guys, look, I love having y'all here. I know you guys are cops, but y'all can get the hell out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You're distracting the waitresses. And it was JD, you know, so, I mean, it was all good. I loved it. Good memories. But I think we're the only, and Matt was OPD at the time, but I think we're some of the few cops that ever got kicked out of a Hooters.
Wow. Yeah, well done. Well done. Yeah. Should have your picture on the wall at that Hooters.
Or JD's anyway. I think they all wanted his number. They like that
as a felon, as an honoree.
So now, you spent 6 years in Orlando. Was that whole time focused on heroin?
Well, yeah, I was in the task force for a long time, and then I got hired, came back, and then the heroin group opened up, and yes, I was in that group, and pretty much all heroin. We had a lot of side cases, spin-offs into cocaine and to other drugs, but that was primarily the focus. There was a group working enforcement, hitting the streets, going after dealers, and there was another group that was dealing with the overdose deaths, trying to reconcile those and charge people.
Right.
So, and we worked with each other and helped each other out. But I was with the guys that we were doing, buys on the street or having informants and doing buys and things like that, operational.
You were talking about the Colombian heroin coming in. If you remember, I know you remember, that Asian heroin coming in was going for $250,000 a kilo. And here come the Colombians in at $50,000 a kilo. And like you said, the purity levels were above 90%. I think they brought in some Lebanese chemists, if I remember correctly, to help them purify it, because they could get it to a certain point, but they couldn't get it above the 90%. And these Lebanese chemists came in and taught them how to do that, which just almost eliminated the Asian heroin.
Oh yeah, they boxed them out totally. It was a genius move on their part. Imagine if they could use that wherewithal for good. But that was amazing. I did like 91, 92. I bought a Kia heroin here in Orlando. A Colombian guy brought it up to us, and the negotiations were at $150,000 for that kilo. And my job was to obviously gain evidence through conversations, but also try to drop that amount down to see if we can get more or have him deliver more in the process. And the guy didn't have any authority to budge off the price, but here you go, 5 years later, you're getting it at 50 grand, 40 grand. Well, I worked a case one time. It was a year-long case. It was a phenomenal case because we were identifying a ton of people, but we got to rolling with one group where the bad guy we knocked off had just paid off his debt. So he was able to introduce somebody with him, and you bought like a quarter key. Once you paid that off, these guys were just fronting kilos to you. Say, here, get back with me at the end of the month.
Wow.
One time they dropped 5 on us, and we're like, holy cow. Yeah.
That's unheard of.
Oh, you think?
My God.
You're like, and sometimes they'll go out and offer you, and I don't know, sometimes I used to think they were testing me, where they go, hey, why don't you take this whole thing? I go, no, that's too much. What, are you crazy? I can't. I don't. You trying to trap me? In the middle of some of those negotiations, and that gave you a little legitimacy, but because it was true, you never heard of that happening, but it was.
Jeez.
In one case, we worked from a gram to catching the actual leader of the crew flying into Orlando like a jet setter and a Learjet, delivering dope to people here on his way to New York, delivering more. And we caught everybody else in the middle of the chain. Because,
wow.
This type of work, we're working a supply chain, right? So you try to hook yourself to the right part of the chain to try to get as many people as you can identified and charged.
That's what I liked about DEA. You just weren't focused on one person. You always wanted to climb that ladder, and you had resources all around the world when you needed assistance in another place. Because it's, for example, you're stationed in Orlando. For you to go to New York, you don't know your way around. You don't know who the criminals are there. You don't know what cases that you might interfere with if you get involved. The challenge, though, is, are the guys in the other office, New York or wherever, are they going to say, no, this is my case, I can't tell you anything about it, but you can give me all your information, because that happened a lot.
Oh, sure it did. You had to be. And that was one of the things that we had to kind of referee when we were at SOD, remember? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
One of those things, we have those national cases. And I think that was one of the things, this started with your question, what drew you to DEA. It was nice. I was a detective here in a beautiful part of the world, enjoying my job, enjoying my life. But DEA, today, we're in Orlando. After I was here a week, I was in Miami. At the end of that following month, I was buying another coat because I was in New York doing a money pickup, doing different things. And that was the thing. You were going all over the place, and you were connecting the dots. And that was your job, connecting the dots. And my passion fell into that, connecting those dots, going after bigger people, and making sure that we could prosecute them, and that they were the right people you needed to go after, that, and that you were doing it in a way that your prosecutors would support you. You can indict these people take them to the grand jury, and then go get them. And then there's the operational part. Okay, we got a warrant now, but the guy's sitting he's sitting in Bolivia. Okay, you can't. They're not going to give them to you. We had, thanks to what the groundwork you guys laid out, we had extradition in Colombia, and thank God we still do today, right? Ecuadorians don't extradite their own. Sometimes you, and these guys, they go back to a safe haven to hide from you, especially when they knew about the extradition. I met guys undercover in different parts of the world, in Panama. A couple of times I met guys down there that, they said, let's meet here. They didn't want to meet. They would never come to the U.S. They felt safe meeting you in a third-party country. And a lot of times if DEA is in that third-party country, there's treaties and there's agreements made and where you can grab those folks and bring them out.
Yeah, some of those third-party countries can expel those people. They don't care where they go. They just want them out of their country. And if DEA happens to be there with a private plane, they might be expelled to the United States.
And that happened quite a bit. I remember one guy we worked with, he was flying in to meet me. As he came off the jet bridge, the police grabbed him in Panama, walked him downstairs. So a car was waiting because we were driving to the other side of the airport to get on the Learjet to get him out of there. And I went in and sat down next to him to talk to him, see if he would talk. He just did one of these. He saw me, froze, and he turned around. He wouldn't even look at me. He goes, no.
He's like an ostrich.
Oh, my God. He wanted nothing to do. Did not want to look at me. Did not want to admit. Did not want to. He did not. Oh, my God. He was so frozen. I talked to him eventually in Washington. We got him back up to D.C., and he was cooperating and actually gave me a compliment. He says, you did a really good job. I had no idea. I would have never thought.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But, I mean, the good thing is that globally we have such a footprint, and it's guys like you and Javier and the people you worked with then, and you're leaving it a little bit better than it was when you got there. Again, I mean, that's cliche-ish, but that's the truth. You don't want to be the guy that screwed it up because they'll be talking about you for generations after that. And it hurts the mission, right? And it hurts your buddies that are coming in after you to take over and run operations in that particular country.
Yeah, unfortunately, we tend to remember the bad things about each other rather than the good things. So I don't know why that is, but you do one boneheaded thing, and you will not be allowed to forget it until you pass.
You will own it. You will own it. That's for sure, whether you want to or not.
Now, your next step was going to Special Operations Division, but not as a supervisor, as an investigative agent, still GS-13, a journeyman level agent that's still making cases. How did that happen? Because those 959 and 960 groups, that was brand new things.
Yeah, I was part of the inaugural group. Now there's like 5 or 6 groups now. They opened one, the first one. I was one of I forgot, it was a couple hundred people applied for this job, and thank God, I mean, I ended up landing one of those coveted 8 spots somehow, some way. And that was another thing that was kind of funny because a lot of people, guys that were coming to that group were coming from bigger offices, New York, overseas already, Phoenix, Vegas, places, big. I was in Little Orlando and I got up there and lucky, I think, and thankful. But the bilateral investigative unit, or the 959 squads, 959, the subsection of Title 21, people that are importing narcotics or drugs, dangerous drugs into the United States. They don't have to be sitting here. You can charge them from outside because their intent was to bring and distribute within our jurisdictional boundaries. And that was what a great group of guys to work with. First of all, those people can put that particular group of agents, guys and gals, they could put a man on the moon. They were sharp. They were good. And I tell you, I was a little nervous because I was like, man, can I keep? It's not that you're competing with them, but you want to pull your weight, right? So you want to make sure that you do what you're supposed to do and do it the right way.
And you did. I mean, you're being humble, but you were part of that A team.
Well, I was very lucky there. And a lot of these things, and try not to say I a lot, but you can't do them by yourself, right? You got to have help. There got to be other people around. People that are willing to do it. And then you got the other guy that wants to do his case, but you try to find a way to help out. And that group was very, very good group of people. And I love those guys and gals that were in that group and enjoyed it thoroughly. It really was. I was traveling the world. Sometimes I did some undercover, and sometimes I just worked investigative cases and brought some good, bad people to the U.S. for prosecutions, people that were bringing poison to our country and not thinking a bit about it. They didn't care. They were making money.
Exactly. The evil is, evil's rampant throughout the world, but we're spoiled here in the United States because we think, well, we're more powerful than anybody else. Nobody's going to do anything to us. They do it to us every freaking day.
Yeah.
What would you consider your most exciting case or biggest case or most dangerous case that you did while in 959? Because you said you were working undercover there, and we're working, third world countries in some of these places you guys were going.
We worked a lot of significant cases. Everybody, all the other groups, all the other guys did. I handled one case where, again, our job was to link up with our DEA counterparts in the foreign offices to work some of these cases. These are targets of some of them they create and they bring up. And I remember the one case, and it went on well after I got promoted and moved on. And that was a case where we had a guy, it started with in El Salvador with a corrupt congressman who was shielding loads for another narco trafficker who was a Guatemalan. His name was Otto Herrera. And so I worked with an agent in El Salvador, Jim Casey, and his crew, and Sean in Guatemala City. And so we had a bunch of drug seizures. 1 ton of cocaine on a ship, 2 on this one. They were caught as they were coming in. We were able to get the information from those cases and work backwards to identify who was responsible and who was working on those cases. And we were finding the drugs and we outlined and identified a large organization. We were finding loads. There were loads being seized within the U.S. borders from that group. So we were able to do that. But this one congressman was using his political will and his influence to allow loads to come in. He would find security places for these loads. And along the Pacific Rim there in El Salvador, he would rent houses with large plots of land. They call them bodegas, right? And load would come in, they'd store it there till a tractor trailer would come down, pick up the load and transit it. He would sometimes work security himself, follow the load. One time the National Police stopped the truck. One time he went up and badged the guy, said, "Hey, I'm a congressman. These people are good. Let them go." He would do things like that.
Whoa!
He would do things like that. And Sean, the agent up in Guatemala City, was going after this guy's boss, which is Otto. This character, Otto Herrera, and that guy. We were able to, within an indictment we did with him, we were able to put 30 metric tons of cocaine on this guy.
Whoa!
He was really well off, and in the middle of the case, they hit one of his houses, the Guatemala office with the National Police, one of his house storage houses, and they found it was 14 plus million in cash, and they seized it, and that hurt, right? That really hurt. Headlines everywhere. I was sitting at the Department of Justice with my prosecutor, writing out an affidavit for seizure purposes to take that money. So, we were able to relieve some of the work for them, and we helped each other out. That's the way those cases worked, and we chased them. Otto eventually got caught in Mexico, like the week I got promoted, and had to leave. And but Otto had the influence. He was tied into all the other Mexican groups, and he bought his way out of jail in Mexico.
Yeah, I remember that name, Otto Herrera.
Mm-hmm. So, 6-7 years later, he got caught in Colombia. The money group ran into him, and they went out and found him with the National Police, as you know, the best in South America, right?
Yep.
They went and grabbed him, found him, and brought him back to the States. And a whole group was outlined. A lot of other work was done after I left. It's one of those things you hate to go because you're doing these neat things, but sometimes you have to. We left. Another agent took over the case, did a phenomenal job with it after the fact, and was able to talk to the main target after it was done. And that was a pretty good case. And with the congressman, we indicted him first, and then we indicted Otto and the rest of the people later. But congressman, that was one of those guys that he was going to go meet a source, and we knew he was going to meet him down. He happened to be going down to Panama, and guess what happened? He walked down that jet bridge again, and I was downstairs in the car with him, and we flew him back. And,
congratulations! You just got a one-way ticket to the United States. Come on down.
That's what he got. We flew him back, and he semi-confessed. He went to trial, lost badly, and he was late 40s, early 50s, and he got hit with a 30-year sentence.
Oh.
And that was in D.C., in that district. I mean, we went to a trial, and it was a pretty cool experience. Different regions, trials can go either way. So sometimes it's better. I can see why prosecutors want to get a plea because you don't want the guy off the hook. Anything can happen in a court case nowadays. But this guy, we had him dead to rights. He went to trial anyway, and he saw how bad it was.
So everybody, we've been going well over an hour now. So AJ has agreed to continue this interview. We'll finish this up for today, but come and join us tomorrow because we're just now getting ready to go into his career in a section in Tampa, which is a really impressive operation. I think it's still going to this day. And then he goes overseas, and a couple of times he comes back, and it's like he can't keep a job because they just keep sending him all over the world. But AJ, thank you so much for joining us today, brother.
It was my pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
And for all of you, thank you again for joining us here on Game of Crimes with Murph in the Morning. Be sure you come back tomorrow because it's going to be even better than it was today. In the meantime, God bless. We'll see you then.